traders, welcome out to your currency recap for September 15th. Corey here with you. We're going to take you through meaningful news, what's moving the markets, how the Fed is positioning, what other central banks are doing, and then as always, we're going to highlight our best setups, be it crypto or Forex trading pairs.
All trades and analysis in this video are intended for professional traders only. This content does not constitute financial advice and is for educational purposes. This video is being released after a short delay due to Compliance Department review. Maverick members receive this content immediately as part of their daily trading resources. If you're ready to level up, consider joining Maverick Currencies. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits. You bring the skill, we provide the backing. Let's get into today's market recap and see how the pros are trading the currency markets.
So as we take a look at markets this week, we came in with really muted expectations for volatility. I mean, the futures weren't trading much on Sunday night. It came in pretty quiet. What's happening on the economic front is weakening labor data. So the jobs numbers, they've been revised down. We've revised down over 1 million jobs, softer inflation expectations. This is fueling that dollar weakness as people expect, rightly so, that the Fed is about to cut rates. Apart from the Fed, the Bank of Canada may also be moving towards easing as well. So as we came in this week, the CAD was up slightly, US dollar down slightly. But like we said, there wasn't a whole lot on tap for Monday morning. So a pretty quiet week to the start so far. Crypto, a little bit weaker, down 1%. Gold and oil both doing relatively well, up 1%. Equities, again, relatively flat. If you narrow down in crypto, it's really primarily weakness more in Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, some of those areas, not Bitcoin itself as much, which was basically flat on the day. Now, as we take a look at the S&P 500, we've been in this nice upward trend, a series of higher highs and higher lows, right? Each low going higher than the one before. So the peaks are climbing, the valleys are climbing. That's what an uptrend is. And we're currently creating a new peak somewhere, but it is going to be higher wherever it's formed than the prior pivot before it. So in an uptrend, the patterns, the pivots, will in fact move from lower left to upper right, just as we're seeing. Now, the manner in which we move, generally speaking, you get a little bit more aggressively vertical, either when you're at a fresh breakout or you're more extended and you get an exhaustion. So are we at the starting point or are we at the finish line? And one would anticipate that because this trend's been going for months, we're closer to the finish line. However, let me be very clear. Oftentimes you get very vertical and very aggressive to put the finishing touch on the move. What I would consider to be an exclamation point at the end of this move, right? We punctuate it with a big rally to the upside. So that's what we've been referencing, and that's really what equity markets are doing. We're starting to elevate, extend away from the moving average. This is actually more bullish. Don't get negative on the market just because it's up. Things are up because there's more buyers overwhelming the sellers, and that's more likely to persist than to reverse hard. So equities are in a great spot, kind of that risk-on environment. Now, although today was very quiet, not really anything on the economic side, the week really begins on Tuesday. So we come in the morning and we've got CPI, inflation numbers out of Canada. And again, the Bank of Canada is considering cutting rates similar to the US. In fact, they're expected to cut rates down by 25 basis points. Now, CPI in Canada expected to take a notch down at 0.1 versus the 0.3 previous, right? So a reduction in inflation, giving the Bank of Canada the go-ahead to go ahead and cut rates by 25 basis points on Wednesday morning. On Wednesday morning, it's not just the Bank of Canada. We also have the Fed meeting out. That comes out at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and the Fed is anticipated to cut rates by 25 basis points. And then a half an hour later, they'll have their press conference. Market participants will be watching closely to get any insight into whether or not the Fed is signaling further rate cuts. So, not just this 25 basis points, but will they in fact cut rates further and go one notch extra in the coming weeks or in the coming meetings that the Fed has? A lot of analysts are now anticipating multiple rate cuts through the end of the year. So markets are leaning that way, not just a 25 basis point cut, but go ahead and give us a signal that you're going to cut 25 basis points again and maybe again before the year is done. Then on Thursday morning through the middle of the night, we get the Bank of England, and they are expected to keep rates unchanged at 4%. We also have the Bank of Japan this on Thursday in the middle of the night, expected to keep rates unchanged as well. So, four major central bank meetings, the first two in Canada and the US, anticipated to be cutting rates and moving further and further into that easing policy. So, here we find ourselves in a situation where the the US dollar is weakening ahead of the Fed meeting, and that really makes sense. It's in that area where we would be interested in shorting. It has some real velocity to it. What would we trade against it? Well, if we look at what's in tradable territory, it is the Australian dollar. So long Aussie, short US dollar is the trade. Everything else lacks a little bit in the way of volatility right here, right now. So let's consider some possible trades here. First, we look at the Aussie chart by itself. This is the Aussie as compared to all the other currencies in the market. We've got a high base forming, but more impactful is where we've come from. We've been in a nice upward trend. Even now, we persist above the moving averages. We're on a buy signal, and all it would take is just a little push to get the Aussie moving up here, and away we go. Aussie's chart looks fantastic for buying opportunities. Then we flip over to the US dollar chart. Almost an inverse chart. You really have a basing formation, some sort of consolidative pattern. The US dollar is tipping below that. You've got some downward sloping moving averages. You're on sell signals, downward sloping, downward trending, all the characteristics we want to see for shorting a currency, and the US dollar has that momentum. So if we take those two currencies and we stack them together, it is the Aussie USD chart. This is a 4-hour chart of Aussie USD, and you can see buy signals, upward trends, upward slopes, and just now starting to break out above the resistance zone. So as we speak, as we make this recording, Aussie US dollar is a tradable currency. It looks fantastic, not unlike the breakout back here out of a base. That's really what's happening right here, right now. Entering in tonight on a Monday, well, it's not the ideal time. It's not the most energy specific time, but perhaps it can build some profitability here before we even get into Wednesday. This trade could easily have been traded in and out long before Wednesday's Fed meeting occurs. If you still had a half position or something like that through the Fed meeting, fine. I also wanted to show crypto because really I just wanted to emphasize that it's not where the action is right now. This is a chart of Bitcoin, and we're just consolidating sideways. The RSI is right around 50, which is neutral territory. Nobody really has control. You can see it's under the moving average, but has been above it. It's just really kind of in a sideways pattern. So I don't think Bitcoin is really a tradable instrument right here, right now. Now, that could change within the next few hours, right? Things could change and you could start to break down or maybe come up here and start to break out again. But right now, not the velocity in crypto there's better plays in the FX markets, and specifically that Aussie US dollar pair looks pretty solid. So this week you've got the Fed meeting, you've got the Bank of Canada meeting, you've got the Bank of England, you've got the Bank of Japan. We've got lots of central bank meetings and plenty to keep us busy. So keep after it, keep up the great work, and we will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.